The topic today, what gets capitalized in a screenplay? It's a question a lot of people ask. There's lots of information and misinformation out there, so we're going to wrestle with that. In the meantime, thank you for liking, subscribing, all that stuff. If you're finding value, I really appreciate you subscribing and liking. Thank you so much. Let's jump in. When you're writing a screenplay, there's a few things that must be capitalized. And then there's some things that are like, maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. And that's where a lot of the confusion lies. So let's just get the obvious ones out of the way, okay? You must capitalize. If you're writing a screenplay, you must capitalize the following thing. Scene headings, also known as slug lines. So you got to do that. Interior, exterior, living room, day, night, whatever. Character names in the dialogue. So in the middle of the script, you've got dialogue. All the character names of whoever's speaking, that's all in caps, always is. Next, transitions. So anything that's like cut to black, smash to black, match dissolve, match cut, something like that. If you have those that are relevant and pertinent to your story, put them in. Otherwise, you just don't use those. I'll talk about that in a second. And then next is shots. And this is another one that's kind of like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do it. But if you're including a shot, angle up, close up, medium close up, pan across, something like that, a shot or a description of a shot, you normally capitalize those. Now, I need to say a couple of things here at the moment. So if you're writing a spec script, when spec script is something that's not assigned, so you are writing a script because you're hoping to be able to sell it at some point, generally you don't include those transitions unless there's just a really good story reason of why to do it. And you never include the shots, almost hardly ever. You don't have to do it. There's other creative ways to kind of direct the camera without directing the camera. And generally in a script, you don't want to do that. So if you include them, yes, capitalize them, but a general rule, you kind of don't include those transitions and shots. Okay, but then there's the other things where it's kind of like, all right, should I capitalize this thing or not? And it kind of falls into three groups. There's props, there's sounds, and then there's characters. And when we talk about these things, we're talking about them in the descriptions. Okay, so in the action lines, what's going on? So we've got our slug lines, our scene headings, then we've got our action, our description, what's going on. And this is the part that gets really confusing. What do I capitalize in there? What do I not? Okay, so one thing you always capitalize, a character name the first time we meet them. So if it's a character, especially a character that's going to have a speaking role, the first time we meet them, when you're describing them in the description, all caps, their name, all caps, usually followed by a description of some kind. Okay, so must capitalize character names first time we see them. After we meet them, you don't need to capitalize it. Just write it like normal. So my name, Jacob, if you met me, if I'm writing it in a script, the first time is all caps, J-A-C-O-B. And then the next time would just be normal, capital J-A-C-O-B. So things like that. Props and sounds. Now, you will hear, this is where a lot of the misinformation comes in. So one of the things is if you are doing a script for production, okay, so the script's been bought, it's getting made, sometimes they want you to do a rewrite that does force you and they want you to capitalize all the sounds, all the props, just to make sure that all the departments are finding those things. It's not necessary because a lot of times what the departments do now, especially with things being digital, it's a little easier for them. They go through and they color things that matter for them. So you don't really have to do props and sounds. Now, some people will say you should do props and sounds, but the thing is, you have to think about the type of script that you're writing. So if you're doing one for production, yeah, maybe you capitalize those things, but people have already paid you money. If you're not getting paid money, then you're writing a spec script, okay? A spec script because you're trying to sell it. What you want to do is you want to keep the reader reading the whole time. You don't want to give them an excuse to stop. Now, maybe you want to capitalize some of those things and maybe you don't. That choice ultimately is up to you. As a general rule, you kind of don't capitalize them. That's not really the way to do it. But if you do, if you start doing that throughout your script, the main thing to consider then is to be consistent throughout your script. So if you just really feel like, hey, this is really important, or this is an important prop and I want to track it all the way through, and you capitalize it, then make sure you're capitalizing it all the way through. Just be consistent. Okay, you don't want to give a reader an excuse to stop reading. Your job as a writer is to keep them reading, keep them engaged. So when you start making things in all caps and descriptions that doesn't really fit, or you start calling out shots for sure, or transitions for sure, that's where people are like, hey, you're distracting me from the read. I don't want to do that. I want to just keep reading. So just let them keep reading. So don't distract them. Character names for sure, first time we meet them, otherwise no. Prop sound as a general rule, don't capitalize those. Transitions and shots, try to not use them. If you do use them, you have to capitalize them. Scene headings for sure, character names in the dialogue for sure. That's the stuff you capitalize. I hope that's helpful. And if you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, bell, all that fun stuff. If you're gonna tell a story that matters. See you later.